Get ready to dream. Close your eyes, the story is about to begin. In the small Polish village, Zofia had always felt an inexplicable attraction to the forest surrounding her home. On a particularly foggy day, driven by curiosity and a sense of unease, she decided to venture deeper than she had ever dared before. Walking among the ancient trees, Zofia felt the atmosphere change, as if the forest itself was whispering ancient, forgotten secrets. Her steps were light, but her heart pounded, echoing the mystery and beauty of the environment around her. Suddenly, a deep growl cut through the air. A fierce wolf, with glowing eyes and sharp teeth, charged towards her. Fear froze Zofia for a moment, but before she could react, an enigmatic figure emerged from the shadows. With supernatural agility, the man stepped between her and the wolf, facing the beast with a strength Zofia had never seen. After a brief but intense struggle, the wolf retreated, intimidated by the stranger's power. Zofia, still breathless and frightened, looked at her savior. "Who are you?" she asked, trying to steady her trembling voice. "My name is Yaroslav," he replied, his eyes shining with a mysterious light. "You shouldn't be here. This forest can be dangerous." Zofia thanked him shyly. I didn't know. Thank you for saving me." Yaroslav watched her with a disconcerting intensity, as if deciding what to reveal. Finally, he spoke. "I am different. I'm not like other men." He hesitated before continuing. "I am a vampire, Zofia." She remained silent, processing the revelation. Logic told her to run, but something inside her didn't want to flee. Instead, she felt drawn to Yaroslav's presence, to the aura of mystery and the gaze that seemed to see into her soul. "A vampire?" Zofia repeated, more curious than afraid. "You don't seem like a monster." Yaroslav smiled, a sad and enigmatic smile. Not all monsters are visible at first glance. As night fell, they sat by a stream, the moon reflecting in the crystal-clear water. Yaroslav began to tell his story, how he had been transformed centuries ago and had since lived in seclusion, away from the humans who feared his nature. "I was an ordinary man," he said, his voice heavy with memories. "But I was transformed by forces beyond my understanding. Since then, I've struggled to keep my humanity, to not become the monster everyone fears." Zofia, fascinated, told him about her own life in the village, about the challenges and joys of living in a small, close-knit community. As she spoke, she felt a growing connection with Yaroslav, a sense of mutual understanding that transcended their differences. "You don't have to live alone," Zofia said softly. "I see the goodness in you, Yaroslav. Maybe we can find a way to coexist." Yaroslav looked at her with a mix of hope and caution. "Do you really believe that? That a human and a vampire can live in harmony?" "Yes," she replied with conviction. "I believe that love and understanding can overcome any barrier." That night, under the moon's glow and the whisper of the trees, Zofia and Yaroslav formed an unbreakable bond. They knew facing obstacles and prejudice would be inevitable, but they were willing to fight for their love and the possibility of a future where their different natures could coexist in peace. The Polish village of Zofia was in turmoil. In the past weeks, a series of mysterious attacks had shaken the community's tranquility. Fear and suspicion spread quickly, leading the villagers to suspect Yaroslav, the reclusive vampire who lived in the enchanted forest. The whispers and suspicious glances were impossible to ignore. "It was him. Who else could it be?" someone commented at the market. "That dark creature should never have been left in peace," another villager murmured, adding to the tension. Zofia, knowing Yaroslav's true nature and the kindness he had shown, found herself in the difficult position of defending him. During a meeting in the central square, where the villagers were discussing the recent attacks, she raised her voice. "You are making a mistake. Yaroslav is not responsible for these attacks, she declared firmly, facing the skeptical and angry looks of those present. You must be crazy, Sophia, one of the villagers shouted. You're bewitched by that monster. He saved me from a fierce wolf. Sophia replied, trying to contain her anger. If he really were the monster you think, why would he risk his own safety to protect me? But her words fell on deaf ears, and the distrust continued to grow, putting her in an increasingly difficult position within the community. Determination shone in Sophia's eyes. She knew she had to prove Yaroslav's innocence somehow. With a heavy heart and a resolute mind, she decided to venture into the forest to investigate the attacks herself. As she prepared for the journey, her mind was filled with questions. Who could really be behind these attacks? And why? As she entered the forest, Sophia felt a mix of fear and determination. The shadows of the trees seemed to move around her, and the sounds of nature created an unsettling symphony. Yaroslav, I know you're out there, she murmured to herself, trying to find some sign of him or any clue that could help her solve this mystery. After hours of searching, Sophia found strange marks on the ground, different from what a vampire would leave. She followed the tracks, which led her to a hidden clearing where she found evidence that something or someone was manipulating events to incriminate Yaroslav. This doesn't make sense, she whispered, examining the tracks. Who would do this? Suddenly, the sound of breaking branches made her heart race. Who's there? She shouted, trying to keep her courage. To her relief, Yaroslav appeared, his pale features illuminated by the moonlight. Sophia, what are you doing here? He asked, concern evident in his voice. I'm trying to prove your innocence, she said, showing him the evidence she found. Someone is trying to frame you, Yaroslav. I knew you weren't responsible. Yaroslav's eyes gleamed with a mix of gratitude and concern. You're brave, Sophia. But this forest is dangerous. We need to find out who's behind this, together. And we will, Sophia responded with determination. I won't let them destroy your life or mine. We will uncover the truth. With this promise, the two joined forces in a dangerous and crucial mission. The enchanted forest, with all its secrets, became the battleground where Sophia and Yaroslav would fight to protect not only their love but also the truth amidst the chaos and distrust that threatened to consume them. The forest, with its shadows and mysteries, would bear witness to a journey that could change the fate of everyone. Determined to prove Yaroslav's innocence and understand the origin of the attacks, Sophia ventured deeper into the forest, where her investigations led her to a disturbing discovery. Hidden among the ancient and mysterious trees, she found traces of a vampire hunter's order. This order, known as the Night Purifiers, had a dark history, and Sophia realized they were manipulating recent events in the village to incite hatred against Yaroslav. While exploring a clearing, Sophia heard voices and hid behind a tree. Two men, dressed in black cloaks, were speaking in conspiratorial tones. We need to make sure the villagers keep fearing the vampire. That way, our control over the village grows, said one of the hunters, a tall man with a scar on his face. But what if someone discovers the truth? That we're the ones responsible for the attacks, questioned the second hunter, shorter and with a trembling voice. Don't worry. Ignorance and fear are our greatest allies. They'll never suspect, replied the first with a sinister smile. Horrified, Sophia realized she needed to act quickly. Before she could quietly slip away, a branch snapped under her feet. The hunters turned abruptly. Who's there? Shouted the scarred hunter. Sophia ran, but was quickly pursued. Feeling cornered, she found a temporary hiding spot in the hollow of an ancient tree. The hunters rushed past, their voices filled with frustration. She couldn't have gone far. Search over there, ordered the scarred hunter. Waiting until the footsteps faded, Sophia emerged from her hiding place and rushed back to Yaroslav's refuge. When she arrived, breathless and with her heart pounding, she found the vampire anxiously waiting for news. "Sophia, what happened?" Yaroslav asked, his eyes filled with concern. "I discovered something terrible, Yaroslav. There's an order of vampire hunters behind the attacks. They're manipulating the villagers to hate and fear you," Sophia explained, her voice trembling but determined. Yaroslav frowned, his expression growing darker. "The night purifiers. I've heard of them before, but I never imagined they'd be this close. We have to do something. They're using the villagers' fear and ignorance for their own purposes. We can't let them continue," Sophia affirmed, her determination renewed. Yaroslav took Sophia's hands, his cold touch contrasting with the warmth of his passion. "I'm with you, Sophia. We'll fight this injustice together." That night, the clearing in the forest witnessed a silent pact between two souls from different worlds. Sophia and Yaroslav knew the battle would be arduous, but they were ready to face any challenge to protect their love and the truth. Armed with the crucial information Sophia had gathered, they began to plan their next steps, aware that every move could be decisive in the fight against the Hunter's order. "We're going to need more allies," Yaroslav said thoughtfully. "If we can expose the truth, we might gain the support of some villagers." Sophia nodded. "I know some people who might be willing to listen. We need to be strategic and quick." With one last look of complicity, they prepared for the mission that awaited them. The fight for justice and love was just beginning, but together, Sophia and Yaroslav were determined to overcome all obstacles that came their way. Yaroslav gazed at Sophia with an intensity that transcended centuries of solitude. In the moonlit clearing, he knew it was time to reveal a secret he had kept for a long time. "Sophia, there's something you need to know about my origin," he began, his voice heavy with gravity. "I didn't become a vampire by accident or a random bite. I was transformed by the very druid who founded your village centuries ago." Sophia's eyes widened in surprise and curiosity. "The druid? But why? How did that happen?" She moved closer, her hand outstretched as if trying to touch the history he carried. Yaroslav took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his memories. He was a man of great wisdom and power. During a time of great crisis, when the village was on the brink of destruction by invaders, he made a sacrifice. He used an ancient ritual to transform one of his own into an eternal guardian. I was chosen, not for my strength, but for my loyalty to the village. That night, my humanity was taken, and I became what I am now." Sophia listened intently, absorbing every word. "So, you've always been here, protecting the village, even though the villagers didn't know?" "Yes," Yaroslav replied with a serious nod. "I've kept to the shadows, ensuring no greater harm would befall them. But over the years, the legends became distorted, and I turned into a figure of fear, a monster in campfire tales." The two remained silent for a moment, contemplating the irony of the situation. Sophia, however, couldn't help but feel deep admiration for him. "You're more human than many I know, Yaroslav. The village must know the truth." Yaroslav shook his head, uncertain. Even if they knew, Sophia, fear and prejudice are powerful forces. It won't be easy to change hearts and minds. But Sophia was determined. "We can't give up. There's something I found in the forest. An ancient artifact that seems to have great power. Maybe it can help us find a way to coexist peacefully." Yaroslav looked at her with renewed hope. "Show me." They walked together to an ancient oak tree, its sturdy roots hiding a secret. Sophia pushed aside some leaves and revealed a small wooden chest adorned with ancient runes. "I found this while searching for clues about the attacks. I feel it's important." Yaroslav carefully opened the chest, revealing a crystal amulet that glowed with a soft, pulsing light. "This is an artifact of balance," he explained, recognizing the object. "It was created by druids to harmonize opposing energies. If used correctly, it could be the key to our coexistence." Sophia smiled, feeling a wave of hope. "So, we have a chance. We can show the village that peace is possible." However, as they planned their next move, Sophia began to notice the consequences of her closeness with Yaroslav. The villagers, always watchful of each other's movements, started whispering. Sophia's frequent visits to the forest did not go unnoticed, and soon people began to avoid her. In the market, conversations would stop when she approached, doors would close a little quicker when they saw her coming. One particularly difficult afternoon, she ran into her childhood friend, Elena, who looked at her with suspicion. "Sophia, what's going on? Why do you spend so much time in the forest? People are talking." Sophia tried to explain, but knew it would be difficult. "Elena, I've discovered things that could change our village for the better. But I need you all to trust me." Elena shook her head, confused and worried. "You've always been my friend, Sophia. But this is too much. Be careful." The pain of being ostracized weighed heavily on Sophia's heart, but she couldn't give up. The truth about Yaroslav and the artifact was too important. More determined than ever, she knew she would need courage and support to face the challenges ahead. And with Yaroslav by her side, they were ready to fight for the peace they both dreamed of. Emilia, a young villager with a restless spirit, had always felt out of place in the small Polish village. Since childhood, she had listened to the whispered legends from the elders about the mysteries of the enchanted forest. When she heard about the recent events involving Sophia and the vampire Yaroslav, something inside her awoke. The stories that fascinated her were coming to life, and she finally found a purpose: to uncover the secrets of the forest and help prove Yaroslav's innocence. One afternoon, as she ventured through the dense vegetation, Emilia found Sophia and Yaroslav discussing plans to use the artifact they had discovered. The young villager, with her eyes shining with determination, approached hesitantly but decisively. "Sophia, I want to help," said Emilia, interrupting their conversation. Sophia and Yaroslav exchanged surprised glances at the girl's sudden appearance. Sophia, always welcoming, smiled. "Emilia, what do you know about all this?" Sophia asked. "I know enough to understand that Yaroslav is not the monster people say he is. And I know there's much more in this forest than any of us can imagine. I want to help reveal the truth." Yaroslav, still skeptical, fixed his piercing gaze on the young girl. "And why should we trust you?" the vampire inquired. Emilia took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision she was about to make. "Because, like you, I'm tired of the lies and fear that govern our village. I believe we can find a path to peace." Sophia, sensing the sincerity in Emilia's words, nodded. "All right, Emilia. Join us. We have much to do." With a new member in their group, Sophia, Yaroslav, and Emilia began planning how to use the artifact to prove Yaroslav's innocence. The artifact, an ancient amulet carved in stone and embedded with glowing runes, had the power to reveal hidden truths and protect against evil forces. As they devised their strategies, the tension in the village increased with the arrival of Kazimierz, the charismatic leader of the Hunters' Order. With his imposing presence and fiery speeches, he promised the villagers that he would rid them of the evil that inhabited the forest. "My friends, for too long we've lived under the shadow of fear," Kazimierz shouted at one of his public meetings. "I bring you the promise of safety and justice. Together, we will eliminate the threat that plagues us." The villagers, desperate for answers and yearning for a strong leader, applauded fervently. The distrust and hatred directed at Yaroslav grew exponentially. In a more secluded corner, Amelia watched the crowd, feeling a knot in her stomach. She knew Kazimierz was not the hero he appeared to be. Turning to Zofia and Yaroslav, her eyes reflected the urgency of their next actions. "We have to act quickly. Kazimierz is manipulating everyone," she said, her voice trembling. Zofia placed a hand on Amelia's shoulder, offering her comfort and strength. "We'll get through this, Amelia. We need to find a way to use the artifact in front of everyone. Only then can we reveal the truth." Yaroslav, with his serious yet determined expression, agreed. "Kazimierz won't stop until he destroys everything we care about. We need to be smarter and faster." As night fell, the trio prepared for the battle of wits and courage that lay ahead. The forest, with its secrets and riddles, became both the stage and ally in their fight for the truth. Zofia, Yaroslav, and Amelia knew they were facing not just an enemy, but also the deep fears and prejudices of an entire community. Amidst the darkness, the amulet glowed softly, like a promise of hope and justice. And so, united by a greater purpose, they embarked on a journey that would forever change the fate of everyone around them. Kazimierz, a charismatic and cunning leader of the Vampire Hunters Order, arrived in the small Polish village, bringing with him an atmosphere of tension and fear. With his fiery and well-crafted rhetoric, he began manipulating the villagers, inciting growing hatred against Yaroslav, the reclusive vampire of the enchanted forest. "Believe me, my friends," Kazimierz said, standing on an improvised platform in the central square. "Yaroslav is not just a threat to our safety, but to our very existence. He is an ancient evil that must be eradicated." The villagers, already haunted by the recent mysterious attacks and growing paranoia, began to believe Kazimierz's words. Murmurs of distrust and fear spread like wildfire. Zofia, who knew Yaroslav's true nature and of his innocence, felt the weight of despair as she watched her village succumb to panic. Desperate to find a way to expose Kazimierz, Zofia, along with Yaroslav and Amelia, a young villager who had allied with them, decided to dig deeper. During their explorations in the forest, they found an ancient manuscript in a hidden cave. The manuscript, covered in dust and with pages yellowed by time, revealed dark secrets about Kazimierz and his true plans. "Look at this," said Yaroslav, holding the manuscript under the dim light of a lantern. "Kazimierz isn't here to protect us. He wants to exploit the magical resources of the forest to increase his own power." Zofia was shocked by the revelation. "So he's manipulating everyone, using fear for his own selfish gains," she said, her voice trembling with indignation. Amelia, always the most practical of the group, suggested, "We need to expose Kazimierz. But first, we have to earn the villagers' trust. They're blinded by fear and misinformation." With a plan in mind, the trio began working to gather evidence and create strategies to convince the villagers of the truth. They knew it would be a difficult task, but they were determined to protect not only Yaroslav but also the integrity of the village and the enchanted forest. One morning, as they walked through the village, Zofia and Amelia approached a group of villagers gathered in front of the local tavern. "Please, listen to us," Zofia began, trying to keep her voice calm. "Kazimierz is not who he seems to be. We have proof that he intends to exploit the forest for his own purposes." The villagers exchanged suspicious glances, but the murmuring quieted as curiosity grew. With her heart pounding, Zofia opened the manuscript and began reading passages that described how Kazimierz planned to exploit the magical resources of the forest for his own gain, manipulating the villagers' fears to consolidate his power. With each word read, the villagers' faces shifted from skepticism to concern. "We can't ignore what's happening any longer," Amelia continued. "Kazimierz isn't just manipulating us, he's planning to exploit the forest for his own ends." At that moment, Kazimierz, who had been lurking in the shadows, stepped forward into the clearing. His face was twisted with anger, but he still tried to maintain the facade of a just and concerned leader. "This is outrageous," Casimir shouted, his voice echoing through the clearing. "These women are being manipulated by the vampire. We can't trust them." The villagers were divided. Some began to murmur in support of Casimir's, but others, especially those who had known Zofia and Emilia since childhood, began to question their own beliefs. A voice from the middle of the crowd shouted, "Let them speak. We want to hear all the evidence." Sensing the tide turning, Zofia held the manuscript higher. "Here is the proof. Casimir's is not who he says he is. He's been lying to all of us." Tension escalated as Casimir's, realizing he was losing control of the situation, ordered his most loyal followers to attack. "Enough of these empty words. Capture them, and bring Yaroslav to me, dead or alive." Chaos erupted in the clearing. Some villagers tried to follow Casimir's orders, but many hesitated, confused and unsure. Emilia, with agility and bravery, began dodging attacks and shouted to Zofia, "We need to find a way to stop this. We can't let him win." Zofia looked around, searching for Yaroslav. She knew he was nearby, hidden, waiting for the right moment to intervene. Finally, he appeared at the edge of the clearing, his eyes gleaming with fierce determination. "Enough, Casimir's," Yaroslav growled, stepping forward to protect Zofia and Emilia. Casimir's laughed wickedly, his eyes shining with a supernatural malice. "Ah, the great Yaroslav finally shows himself. Let's see who the real monster is here." As Yaroslav faced off against the hunters sent by Casimir's, Zofia and Emilia used the chaos to continue exposing the villain's lies and manipulations. "Believe us," Zofia pleaded with the villagers. "Casimir's is using all of us for his own evil purposes." Finally, one of the older villagers, a man named Andre, stepped forward. "I've known Zofia since she was a child," he said firmly. "If she says Casimir's is deceiving us, then I believe her." This unexpected support began to turn the tide. Other villagers started to join Andre, openly challenging Casimir's and his followers. The clearing became a battleground of wills, with the truth slowly emerging from the shadows of manipulation and fear. Realizing he was losing his grip, Casimir's prepared for a final, desperate attack on Yaroslav. "If I fall, he will fall with me," he shouted, charging forward with supernatural fury. But Zofia, holding the magical artifact, stepped between Casimir's and Yaroslav. "No more, Casimir's," she said, activating the artifact's power. A brilliant light emanated from it, forcing Casimir's to retreat, his sinister figure beginning to fade in the purifying light. The villagers, now fully convinced of the truth, rallied behind Zofia, Emilia, and Yaroslav, finally ready to fight for the future of their village and the peaceful coexistence they had longed for. A fierce battle erupted in the enchanted forest. The air was thick with tension, and the sound of shouts and clashing weapons reverberated among the ancient trees. Yaroslav, the millennia-old vampire, fought with supernatural strength but was outnumbered. At his side, Zofia and Emilia bravely defended themselves, trying to repel the hunters led by Casimir's. The determination in their eyes showed they were willing to fight to the end. "Yaroslav, to your left," Zofia shouted as she struck a blow with an improvised sword, driving one of the attackers back. Yaroslav spun quickly, his vampiric instincts sharp, and narrowly avoided a stake aimed at his heart. With superhuman strength, he brought down the assailant, but not without suffering deep cuts on his arms and torso. Blood flowed, staining the forest floor. Emilia was beside Zofia, using a bow and arrows she had found in an old cabin in the forest. She shot arrows with precision, trying to keep the hunters at bay. "We can't let them get too close, Zofia. If they manage to corner Yaroslav, We're doomed. Sophia knew Amelia was right. They needed a strategy, something to turn the tide in their favor. She looked at the artifact she had attached to her belt, an ancient amulet believed to have the power to heal and repel evil. Her mind raced, searching for a way to use the object to save Yaroslav. Yaroslav, we need a plan. They're surrounding us. Sophia shouted, her voice filled with desperation. Yaroslav, panting, responded between blows. Sophia, the artifact, use the artifact now. It's our only chance. Without hesitation, Sophia gripped the amulet tightly and began to recite the words Yaroslav had taught her. Her voice trembled, but she remained focused, feeling energy surge through her. The amulet began to glow intensely, emitting a light that seemed almost magical. The hunters recoiled, blinded by the intense light. Sophia directed the artifact's power toward Yaroslav, who fell to his knees, gravely wounded. The light surrounded him, and Sophia prayed that the amulet had the power to heal him in time. "Stay with me, Yaroslav," Sophia whispered, tears in her eyes. "I can't lose you." Yaroslav felt a wave of warmth surge through his body, and his wounds began to close. He looked at Sophia, his eyes filled with gratitude and love. "Sophia, you did it." Amelia kept shooting arrows, keeping the hunters at bay while Sophia worked to heal Yaroslav. The tension was palpable, and every second felt like an eternity. Finally, the light from the artifact began to fade, and Yaroslav stood up, revitalized. He looked around, seeing the hunters hesitating, and felt a new strength within him. "Now, let's finish this," he said firmly. With Sophia and Amelia by his side, Yaroslav charged at the hunters, who were now disorganized and terrified. The tide of the battle turned in their favor, and the hunters began to retreat, realizing they couldn't win. Kazimierz, seeing his men flee, roared with anger. "Cowards! Come back and fight! Don't let that monster win." But it was too late. The remaining hunters fled, and Kazimierz found himself alone against Yaroslav, Sophia, and Amelia. He backed away, knowing he had lost the battle, but his eyes burned with the promise of revenge. The victory was bittersweet for Sophia. Although they had repelled the hunters, she knew the fight was far from over. Kazimierz still had support in the village, and the shadow of conflict hung over them all. But at that moment, with Yaroslav by her side and Amelia holding her hand, she felt a spark of hope. "We'll fight together, Sophia," said Yaroslav, squeezing her hand. "No matter what comes, we'll face it together." Sophia looked into Yaroslav's eyes, and for the first time in a long while, she smiled. "Yes, together," she replied with renewed determination. They knew the real battle was still ahead, but they were ready to face whatever came their way, united by love and justice. Sophia and Amelia returned to the small village, exhausted after the battle, but filled with a new determination. The recent struggles had shown that, while the threat of Kazimierz was formidable, truth and justice could prevail. They knew they needed to recruit more villagers to their cause, to build a solid resistance against the manipulation and terror spread by Kazimierz. On a cold evening, Sophia and Amelia organized a secret meeting at the local tavern. They invited some of the most influential villagers and those who hadn't been completely overcome by fear. Among those present were Pyotr, a robust and respected blacksmith, and Marta, a healer with significant influence in the community. "I understand that many of you are afraid," Sophia began, her voice firm but full of compassion. "Kazimierz has played on our worst fears, but he is not who he seems. He doesn't protect us, he uses us." Pyotr, with his arms crossed over his chest, asked skeptically, "Why should we believe you? You're siding with that vampire. How do we know you're not being manipulated?" Amelia intervened, her eyes shining with determination. "Because I doubt it too, Pyotr. but I've seen the truth with my own eyes. Casimir's is not only manipulating us, he plans to exploit the magical resources of our forest, something that will bring destruction to both humans and supernatural beings. Marta, who had remained silent, finally spoke, her voice laden with uncertainty. If what you're saying is true, what do you suggest we do? Confront Casimir's directly? Sophia nodded. We need to set a trap. We'll plan to capture him and expose his true intentions. But for that, we need everyone's help. United, we stand a chance. After hours of arguments and planning, a tenuous but hopeful alliance began to form. The villagers, though still hesitant, knew that the only way to save the village was to confront the true enemy. The following night, the plan was set into motion. Sophia and Emilia, with the help of the allied villagers, prepared an ambush in the central clearing of the forest, a place Casimir's often used for his fiery speeches. They hid among the trees, waiting patiently for the perfect moment to strike. When Casimir's arrived, accompanied by his hunters, Sophia gave the signal. In a coordinated move, the villagers emerged from their hiding spots, surrounding Casimir's and his men. Casimir's laughed, a cold and disdainful laugh. You think you can stop me? You're doomed. Before he could continue, Yaroslav appeared, his imposing presence causing even the bravest to hesitate. Casimir's, your time is up. The village will see who you really are. Casimir screamed in rage and, in a desperate act, launched himself at Yaroslav. The ensuing fight was intense and brutal, but something unexpected quickly happened. During the confrontation, a strange light emanated from Casimir's body, revealing his true nature. He was, in fact, a vampire, but not an ordinary one. He fed on fear and discord, growing stronger as he spread terror. The villagers were stunned, their expressions of shock and horror reflecting the revelation. Marta, the healer, was the first to speak, her voice trembling but resolute. All this time, he was deceiving us. Casimir's, now exposed, tried to flee, but the villagers, driven by the newly discovered truth, wouldn't let him escape. With a new sense of unity and purpose, they fought against their former fears, determined to free the village from Casimir's tyranny. The revelation that Casimir's was, in fact, a vampire who fed on fear and discord deeply shocked the villagers. The news spread like wildfire through the village, eroding the trust they had placed in the charismatic leader. The anger and confusion were palpable as the villagers gathered in the central square to discuss the betrayal. How could we have been so blind? Exclaimed Yannick, one of the most respected villagers, his eyes wide with disbelief. We followed a monster disguised as a savior. Sophia, with a solemn expression, stepped forward. Casimir's used our fears against us. He manipulated everyone to achieve his own goals. But now that we know the truth, we must unite to defeat him once and for all. Yaroslav, still recovering from the wounds of the previous battle, approached with steady steps. We don't have time to waste. Casimir's won't sit idly by. He knows we are aware of his true nature and is undoubtedly planning a counterattack. The tension was thick, but there was a renewed determination among the villagers. They would not allow an impostor to continue spreading terror in their lives. With the help of the magical artifact that Sophia and Yaroslav had discovered, they began to devise a plan to defeat Casimir's once and for all. The next night, under the pale light of the moon, the villagers joined Sophia, Yaroslav, and Emilia in the forest. The magical artifact emitted a soft glow, filling them with hope. They knew this would be the final battle. Everyone knows what to do, Sophia said, her voice steady. Casimir's doesn't expect us to unite against him. We have the advantage of surprise. As the final confrontation began, Casimir's emerged from the shadows, his eyes glowing with inhuman fury. You really think you can defeat me? He sneered, his voice full of disdain. "I am immortal. I will feed on your fear forever." But the villagers, armed with the truth and the magic of the artifact, did not back down. The battle was fierce and intense. Casimir's, with his supernatural strength, seemed invincible. However, the unity of the villagers, combined with Sophia's courage and Yaroslav's strength, began to turn the tide. At a crucial moment, Sophia raised the magical artifact, which shone brightly. "For all those you've manipulated and hurt, Casimir's, your tyranny ends here," she proclaimed. The light from the artifact enveloped Casimir's, who screamed in agony. His skin began to disintegrate under the intensity of the magic, and in a final act of desperation, he tried to attack Sophia. But Yaroslav, with one last effort, held him in place as the magic consumed the vile vampire. Finally, with a final scream, Casimir's was reduced to dust, his evil presence finally destroyed. The villagers let out a collective sigh of relief. The threat that had loomed over them was gone. In the days that followed, the village began to rebuild, not just physically, but also spiritually. The villagers, now aware of Yaroslav's true nature and innocence, began to accept him as a guardian rather than a threat. Sophia and Yaroslav, together, worked tirelessly to promote peace and understanding between the humans and the supernatural beings of the forest. The magical artifact, which had once been a weapon of defense, became a symbol of unity and hope. Emilia, who had found her purpose in the legends of the forest, became a bridge between the two worlds, teaching the villagers about the wonders and secrets of the enchanted forest. Over time, the Polish village flourished, no longer haunted by fear, but illuminated by acceptance and understanding. Humans and supernatural beings coexisted harmoniously, building a future of peace together. And at the heart of this new era were Sophia and Yaroslav, united by a love that defied all expectations and overcame all obstacles. Good night and enchanted dreams.